Hey guys, it's Carly and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Let's Talk Faith and Football. And I do have a little bit of a different background today. That's because I'm filming in my closet. It's just a little bit more quiet in here, and my sister's outside my bedroom door, so she could probably hear me if I was just filming in my bedroom, and I'd be a little bit embarrassed by that. So I'm just in my closet, a little bit more peaceful and quiet in here, if you guys were curious about the background. But anyways, let's get right into the video. For the faith portion, I'm going to be taking you guys through Genesis 1 verses 14 to 25, a continuation of the last video where I went through Genesis 1 verses 1 to 13. And then for the football portion of this video, I'll be taking you guys through my highs and lows for the AFC North. So I'm very excited to do that. But anyways, let's get right into the faith portion of this video. And we're going to be, as I said, in Genesis 1 and starting at verses 14 to 25. As always, I'm going to read it before I discuss it with you guys. So have your Bibles ready. I use the King James Version. If you have a different version, that's totally fine. I'm just going to be reading a little bit differently than what your Bible says. But have your notes ready if you wish to take notes. Or you can just listen, sit and listen. That's totally fine too. But anyway, before I begin reading, I'm just going to give you a little bit of what we talked about in my last video so you guys have context. So verses 1 to 13, we went through God creating the heaven and earth, Him creating light, which was more of a supernatural light than an actual physical light like the sun that we have today, His creation of the firmament, and in the firmament's three different meanings. It could mean our atmosphere, the sky, and the clouds, or outer space, and we'll get into that in today's video as well. We went into Him separating the earth and the waters, and as well as Him creating plant life. So that was verses 1 to 13, just very, very briefly and quickly. Now starting at verse 14, I'll read until verse 25, and then we'll discuss it. So verse 14 reads, "And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be for the lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth, and it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also." Verse 17, "And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good." Verse 19, "And the evening and the morning were the fourth day." Verse 20, "And God said, Let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth, in the open firmament of heaven." Verse 21, "And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good." Verse 22, "And God blessed them, saying, Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let fowl multiply in the earth." Verse 23, "And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after its kind. And it was so." Verse 25, last verse, "And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good." So that was verses 14 to 25. And as I've said in previous videos, sometimes when I'm reading through these verses, something confuses me, so I look it up in case maybe it confused you as well, so that now we'll be able to have the answer for it. And I did that with a couple of these verses, and we will talk about that when I get to the specific verse. But starting with verse 14, it says, "And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night." So this creation of light is actually the sun, moon, and stars, the light that lights up our earth. And the firmament in this case is not talking about like the sky and the clouds. It's not talking about our atmosphere, but it's actually talking about outer space, because the sun, the moon, and stars are in outer space. So that's what the firmament is speaking of in this context. And it says, "And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night." So our sun, which lights up the day, and our moon, which lights up the night, they kind of separate for us, kind of so we know, okay, when a day begins, and then when a day ends, and then when it's like nighttime, the moon is what shines upon our earth, giving us light. And then when it says at the end of that verse, "And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years," a little bit more of a complex thing to understand, but they can be for signs. They can be how we tell seasons. They can be how we tell days as well as years. Days is really easy because obviously morning, afternoon, evening, we have the sun, and then that goes down, and then the moon comes up. That's how we tell between our days. We know that the end of a day is coming when we see the sun going down and the moon coming up. Verse 15, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth. And it was so. Obviously, our sun gives us light in the day, afternoon, evening, and then as the sun goes down, the moon comes up and gives us light at night, as well as the stars, of course. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the sun, and the lesser light to rule the night, the moon. He made the stars also. Verse 17, and God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. Plain and simple. Verse 18, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. So our sun obviously rules over the day, and our moon and stars rule over the night. Verse 19, and the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Verse 20, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl, which are birds, bird life, that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. The firmament in this case is not referring to like outer space, but because we're talking about birds and bird life, obviously we're talking about the sky and the clouds where birds fly above the earth. And then in verse 20, so at the beginning of it, this is where I was kind of a little bit confused, one of the things that I had looked up. And because it says, and God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, when I read this, it kind of gave me the thinking, okay, God just commanded the waters to create the creatures that belong in the water. But then when I read verse 21, it says, and God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, which are birds. And God saw that it was good. So what I was kind of confused on is why verse 20 said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures. It kind of gives you like the idea that the waters created the creatures, but then verse 21 says clearly that God created the great whales and every living creature that moveth. So I looked up kind of what verse 20 was indicating, what it meant. Basically, it says, God commanded the seas to swarm with active, diverse aquatic life and birds to be adequate enough to kind of be able to have life living inside of it, the waters. That's just kind of what, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life. That's just kind of what it means. Like, God commanded the waters to be able to support the life that was going into the waters, the whales, the sharks, the turtles, etc. And verse 24 and 25, which we'll get to, also has a similar language, so I'll refer back to this again, but once we get to it, let's move to verse 22. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let fowl, birds, multiply in the earth. So be fruitful and multiply, populate the waters with more sharks, with more whales, with more starfish, with more sea turtles, with more seahorses, and whatnot, all creatures. Same with birds of the air. That's how we have so many different types of birds and so many different types of sea creatures, because they were fruitful and multiplied. They populated the seas and the air with birds. Verse 23, and the evening and the morning were the fifth day. So we're on day 5. Now moving on to day 6. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beasts of the earth after his kind, and it was so. Verse 24, so similar to verse 20, when it said, so verse 20, reading back to it, it says, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life. Verse 24, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind. And same language, I was like, okay, so a little bit confused, but obviously getting my answer to verses 20 and 21, you can apply it the same thing to verse 24. Just God commanded the earth to be able to have life living upon it. God did the actual creating of every individual creature. So God's not commanding the earth to create creatures. He's kind of commanding the earth to be able to sustain or be able to have life living upon it, life that God is ultimately creating. So verse 24, and obviously if you're confused, like, what does after his kind mean? Like, what is after his kind when it says, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beasts of the earth after his kind? It just means, like, for example, when I was talking about the sea creatures, used after his kind as well. So like, whales are going to come from whales, and sharks are going to come from sharks, and turtles are going to come from turtles. That's what after his kind refers to. And verse 25, finally, it says, "And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and God saw that it was good." So obviously, this kind of like verse 21, verse 25 goes into God actually making those creatures that live upon the earth, like horses and giraffes and elephants and all those things that live physically on the earth, not sea creatures as we got into in verse 20 and 21, and bird life as well. But this is kind of land animals, elephants, as I said, etc. I can't think of any land animals. Why? Like monkeys and whatnot. Like, you can fill in the blank with any land animal, tigers, etc. That's what God created on we're getting into day 6 now. I'm not going to go further into verses 26, 27 because I'm running out of time, and I'll probably do this in my next video though, but we will be continuing with day 6. We just started day 6 when we got into verses 24 and 25 after it said in verse 23, "In the evening and the morning were the 5th day." So in the 6th day now, but we have not completed it. That would be verses 26, 27, and etc. But I'll maybe get into that in my next video. Now we have to move to the football portion of this video, but I do hope you guys enjoyed me going over those verses 14 to 25. Let me know in the comments if you want me to continue verses 26 and etc. in my next video. But now we have to move to the football portion, so let's go. Okay guys, we're in the football portion of this video, and I'm very, very excited because I'm going to be taking you guys through my highs and lows for the AFC North and the teams in that division. So if you did not know what teams were in the AFC North, that is totally fine because I'm going to tell you. We have the Bengals, Browns, Steelers, and Ravens. Now, starting with the Bengals, I'm going to go through the home games and the away games, as I've done in other videos, just to kind of separate out the games for you so they don't get like who do they play again? I'm trying to separate them out as best I can, so I separate them into home games as well as away games. So starting with the Bengals, their home games are against the Buccaneers, Jaguars, Titans, Steelers, Saints, Chiefs, Ravens, and Browns. And then their away games are against I just turned down the brightness on my computer, I'm sorry. And then their away games are against the Texans, Steelers, Dolphins, Ravens, Falcons, Commanders, Browns, Panthers, and Colts. So personally, I think Bengals are one of those teams that have so much potential and yet just can't seem to do anything with that potential because, I mean, you have T. Higgins, you have Chase Brown, you have Jamar Chase, you have Joe Burrow, but it's like Joe Burrow gets injured and it's like they miss out on the playoffs, or, their defense isn't kind of doing well, which kind of seems to be their downside a lot of the time, but also I think Burrow getting injured as well. So they have so much potential, and that's why I will say my high for the Bengals is a little bit high, because they do have potential if they have a great season. That's what a high is, if they have a great season. That's why I have their high as 13-4, and I have them with their home games just maybe losing to the Jaguars and the Chiefs, and then in their away games, which would be at the opposing team stadium, them losing to the Texans and Ravens. But that gives them the record of 13-4. I think that's pretty high just in general, because I don't know what the Bengals record was last year. Was it like, I don't know if it was that great, but I don't really remember, so I'm sorry about that. But then for their low, I have 9-8, because adding on to the teams that already had them losing to with their high of 13-4, adding on to those teams that they were losing to already, I have the Steelers, the Ravens, and then Steelers again when they would go up against them at the Steelers Stadium, and then the Browns. So making them 9-8. I think it's a pretty valid high and low, but let me know in the comments if you disagree. As I said, I think the Bengals have so much potential. They just, something goes wrong, whether it's their defense or it's Joe Burrow gets injured. They have the weapons to be able to make it to the playoffs. I just don't remember the last time that they did. I mean, it could have been like a couple of years ago, but I don't remember, but they have potential. So that's why I gave them a pretty good high of 13-4, because they are able to get that 13-4 if everything goes well for them. Moving on to the Steelers, their home games are against the Falcons, Bengals, Colts, Browns, Broncos, Texans, Ravens, and Panthers. And then their away games are against the Patriots, Browns, Buccaneers, Saints, Bengals, Eagles, Jags, Titans, and Ravens. So I personally think that this is a pretty high for the Steelers. I have 12-5. Now, I will say the AFC North's games this year are a little bit easier than they were last year, so that might be why my highs are a little bit high. But I have theirs is 12-5 because I have them with their home games. I only have them losing to the Broncos, because I do think that if they have a good season, that they could beat the Bengals at home, that they could beat the Falcons, that they could beat the Ravens. So then for the away games, who I have them losing to would be the Patriots at the Patriots Stadium, whatever their stadium's called. Sorry, I forget. I have the Steelers losing to them. I also have the Steelers probably losing to the Bengals at home, at the Bengals Stadium, and then Eagles and Jags at the opposing team stadium, of course. So that's what makes them 12-5. I don't think that the Steelers could beat the Eagles or the Jags or the Bengals at their stadium, the Bengals, Eagles, and Jags stadium. I don't think that's going to happen. So that's what makes them 12-5, including the Broncos loss and Patriots loss. But then their low I have is 7-10. And so we would add on to the losses the Bengals, the Texans, the Ravens, and the Bucks. So they're high of 12-5 and their low of 7-10. I think that they could have this high of 12-5. I mean, you have Aaron Rodgers, who has a great arm. You have DK Metcalf. I mean, the possibility is it's a possibility. But personally, I do think that in the AFC North, that the Bengals are going to be the best this year, I think. If Burrow can stay healthy, as well as their defense kind of picks it up a little bit, I do think the Bengals will be the best in the AFC North. That's just my opinion. You can let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. But anyway, moving on to the Browns. I think that this is kind of as well a pretty high for the Browns. Why? I'm not really quite sure, but again, they have a little bit of a easier season this year than they did last year. So their home games are against the Panthers, Steelers, Ravens, Texans, Raiders, Bengals, Falcons, and Colts. And then their away games are against the Jags, the Bucks, the Jets, Titans, Steelers, Saints, Giants, Ravens, and Bengals. And so their high is 7-10. And so I have them losing, well, I guess it's not that high of a high, but I don't know. For the Browns, I think their record last year, what was the Browns' record last year? I think this is very different to what their record was last year. Yeah, 5-12. Well, so it is quite different, but as I said, they do have an easier schedule this year, or I think that they do. So I have them in the home games in the Browns Stadium. I do have them losing to the Ravens, Texans, Bengals, and Falcons. And then in their away games, so at the opposing team stadium, I have them losing to the Jaguars, the Buccaneers, the Steelers, Giants, Ravens, and Bengals. And I think that that's pretty valid. And then their low I have as, okay, now I think people are going to disagree with me on this, but it is a low. This is obviously worst case scenario would be 0-17, but my worst case scenario for them, I think, is 2-15, and that would be them literally losing to everyone but the Jets and Titans, even at their stadium, the Jets and Titans stadium. I think that the Browns will still beat them, but that would be the only teams that they went against, the Jets and Titans, making them 2-15. So I feel like people are going to disagree with me on that, and that's completely fine because it's just my opinion. But anyways, moving from the Browns to the Ravens, we have a high of 13-4. Now, this is the same high as the Bengals, yes, but I do still think that the Bengals are going to be a little bit better. It just seems like every year the Ravens just, with all the potential that they have too, with Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers and Isaiah Likely or Isaiah Likely still on the Ravens? Well, Mark Andrews and Lamar Jackson. It's just like they don't seem to be getting to the level that I think that they should be, because I mean they have a great team, and I think it's more Lamar's injuries that kind of hurt the team a little bit. But anyways, if all goes well for that team, I think that they could be 13-4. Let's see, the record last year was 8-9. Well, I don't I'm sorry guys, I can't remember. I don't think they made it to the playoffs. No, I don't think that they did. But if they have a winning season this year, they could 100% be 13-4, and I think that they are a playoff team. They just have to play like they're a playoff team. So anyway, high of 13-4. Their home games are against the Saints, Titans, Bengals, Jags, Chargers, Bucks, Browns, and Steelers. And then their away games are against the Colts, Cowboys, Falcons, Browns, Bills, Panthers, Texans, Steelers, and Bengals. So for them being 13-4, the 4 teams I would have them losing to would be all away games. I think that they could win in all of their home games if they have a good season, but the only teams I would have them losing to would be in their away games against the Bills, Texans, Steelers, and Bengals. I think that those games would be pretty hard, especially like the Bills and the Bengals, I think would be most difficult. That's kind of why I have them as 13-4. But their low I have is 8-9, and that would, adding on to the teams I already have them losing to, I would add on to that an away game against the Cowboys, as well as home games against the Bengals, Jags, Chargers, Steelers at the Ravens Stadium, but still losing to the Bengals, Jags, Chargers, and Steelers, making them 8-9. So those are my highs and lows for the AFC North, the Bengals, Browns, Steelers, and Ravens. Let me know in the comments if you guys agree or disagree with me. And I'm excited to say that in my next video, I'll be taking you guys through my highs and lows for the NFC North. And I know that's a very popular division, at least I believe that it is, especially the Vikings and the Packers. I know that there are a lot of Vikings and Packers fans, so I'm very excited to give you my highs and lows for that division. Anyways, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the faith portion of my video where I took you guys through Genesis 1 verses 14 to 25. Let me know in the comments if you want me to continue this study by bringing you guys through Genesis 1 verses 26 and so on. And also, guys, I hope you enjoyed my football portion where I took you through the highs and lows for the AFC North, my opinion, of course. And in my next video, I will for sure be taking you guys through my highs and lows for the NFC North, so I'm really excited for that, and I hope you guys are. But also, guys, please subscribe, comment down below. I would love to respond and read your guys' comments, and turn on your post notifications so that you're notified when I post that new video. As always, you guys have a purpose and are loved by me and by who is in heaven above. Bye, guys.